Showtime!
Mario, one of the greatest franchises to have ever shaped the video game industry. And I've got to say, for a video game franchise about a fat mustache man who jumps high and shoots fireballs underwater, the Mario series has a pretty unique rogues gallery of baddies. So, as I browser, I'm going to be counting down my all-time favorite Mario villains. And I'll be judging each of these villains for their design, motivation, charm, memorability, and even battles. Also, for a countdown about villains, this video is not without spoilers. But for now, it's showtime! For a countdown about Mario villains, what better way to start that said countdown than with the child commanders of the Koopa army and the adopted surrogate sons of King Bowser himself, the Koopa Kids, or as they are properly pronounced, the Koopalings. These baby bastards first appeared in the beloved Super Mario Bros. 3, and then further onward as bosses and even playable characters in certain spin-offs. There's 7 of them in total, each being modeled after the dev team of Mario 3 and being named after various famous musicians. Larry Koopa is the youngest, and my favorite of the gang. He's the only Koopaling not named after a musician, and is known for being the easiest of all the Koopalings to beat. But I've known him for that sick mohawk of his. Gordon Koopa is commonly the biggest of the gang. It's the only Koopa to have a brown skin tone, and he is named after Morton Downey Jr. Wendy-O Koopa is the only female Koopaling and my least favorite of the gang. She is named after Wendy-O Williams. Iggy Koopa is the craziest of the gang, and my third favorite. He's known for being extremely hyperactive and all over the place, and is named after Iggy Pop. His hair also used to be very similar to Lemmy's. This was likely changed to help further differentiate the two. Roy Koopa is a large brute of a Koopaling, who's the kind of guy who picks brown over brain, and is my second favorite of the gang. His most well-known features are his shade and pink skin, which are likely a reference to Real Men Wear Pink. He is named after Roy Orbison. Lemmy Koopa is the most childlike of the gang, and is known for fighting by using a large ball to flatten his foes. He is named after Lemmy Kilmister. And finally, there's Ludwig van Koopa, who's the oldest, smartest, and strongest of all the Koopalings. He's named after Ludwig van Beethoven, likely due to his massive blue hair. Now, with all that stated, you're probably wondering, why are they only on number 10? Well, to simply put, they're not very interesting. Throughout all the games they appeared, they only seem to have one personality trait, and not much else. Sure, I can go with the Mario Bros. Cartoon show, but that series isn't really canon to the Mario universe. And aside for turning all the kings in the Mushroom Kingdom into animals, they really haven't done that much in the grand scheme of things. I don't know, maybe there's some game about them that I'm missing, but that's just me. Even still, they are an iconic addition to the Mario universe, and a group of baddies that make me smile with every time I see them. Thieves. Not exactly the most intimidating type of villainy, but when they are done right, they're bound to give anyone one heck of a laugh. And in Nintendo's case in point, we have Poeple from Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Story-wise, Poeple is as unimportant to the plot as, I don't know, Junior Koopa from Paper Mario, but Alpha Dream made sure you'd remember this snarky, self-righteous thug for life. For one thing, Poeple is really stupid, and hilariously short-tempered, always doing his damnedest to interrupt the plot whenever he can, and always trying to get in the way of your journey in the most ridiculous of fashions. Somehow, luck always seems to be by his side most of the time. Hell, the first time you encounter him, he's seen with fucking Bowser by his side, whom at this point had amnesia from being launched out of a cannon, to which Poeple came and made him his partner in crime, and renamed him Rookie. How hilariously awesome is that? The fights with him and Rookie are also just as fun, and equally challenging. And let's not forget that catchy-ass theme song of his. I love this song a lot. In fact, I love this song so much that, you know what? I'm gonna give it some lyrics if you don't mind. Ahem. Poeple and Rookie, they are the best thugs, masters of thievery. Watch them in action. You have no chance against this evil pair. They'll take you down and then leave on no trace. Okay, I'll stop. That's right, everybody. At number 8, we have the true son of Bowser and the rightful heir to the Koopa throne, the mischievous and bratty Bowser Jr. Now, this may come as a surprise, considering a lot of people tend to hate on this little guy, but remember, Super Mario Sunshine was the first game I've ever played, and therefore the first villain I've ever laid eyes on was Bowser Jr. But nostalgia's not the only thing on why I love this little guy, so let's get into it, shall we? First of all, his abilities. On his own, Junior is pretty damn weak compared to his surrogate siblings, but he's far from touchable. With almost every time you fight him, Junior comes in well equipped with a vast assortment of deadly toys at his disposal, from clown carts to giant clown copters to freaking tanks and battle mechs. The things Bowser gives to his son is pretty damn absurd, but also extremely awesome. I mean, I sure as hell would love to be Bowser's kid if it means having a real-life Gundam to pilot for Christmas. And even with his deadly arsenal of toys, Junior is also shown to be a master of dark magic. With the aid of a magic paintbrush stolen from Professor Egad, Bowser Jr. has the ability to shapeshift into his shadowy alter ego, Shadow Mario, gaining much of Mario's abilities in the process. While in this form, he can use that said brush to spew out gallons of gooey paint-like substances known as graffiti, which he can also use to create minions of his very own. This is easily the most memorable part of the character for me, which makes me wonder, why doesn't Bowser use that brush more often? It's such an effective tool. I mean, you'll have to admit that electrifying sludge and slimy piranha plants make a great addition to the Koopa Armada, am I right? And then there's his personality. Throughout the games, Bowser Jr. is shown to be very bratty and childish, which admittedly can get annoying at times. Even still, his heart is at the right place. And above all else, he loves his daddy, and he wants to make him proud by any means necessary. From tricking an entire island population into blaming and arresting you, to getting in the way of your progress whenever he can, to fucking insulting your intelligence in Mario Galaxy 2. Again, a lot of people tend to hate him for that, but for me, that's just what makes him a memorable baddie. So previously on the list, we had a snarky treasure hunting thief on the number 9 spot. But what can be better than one snarky treasure hunting thief? Pfft, 2, obviously. But first, quick question. What do you get when you take Mario and Luigi's names and mix them with Wario, the Japanese word for bad? Well, you get the Wario Brothers, the greatest contrast to the happy-go-lucky Mario Brothers you'll ever see. Starting with Wario, he made his very first appearance in Super Mario Land 2, where he took over Mario's castle, yes, castle, and tries to kill him. But luckily Mario prevails and Wario is defeated, but he was far from done. Afterwards, Wario would then take over the role of main character of Mario Land and renamed it the Wario Land series. In that series, Wario was a treasure hunter, going through exotic lands in search of treasure, gold coins, puppies, and shoulder tackling the fuck out of whatever monster got in his way. Further down the road, Wario would get yet another series of his own, dubbed the WarioWare series. There, he was a sort of businessman type guy, trying to make money off of minigames. It's with these games that truly fleshes out Wario's personality. Throughout his various appearances, Wario is shown to be this egotistical, rude, selfish and greedy bastard that only cares about wealth more than anything. Hell, this is the kind of guy who would go to a parallel world, risking his life and limb in the process, only to immediately ditch the princess he rescued just so he can have her bag of infinite coins to himself. And we love him for it. And then there's Waluigi, He appeared sometime later in 2000 when Nintendo decided that Wario should have a partner he could call his brother, along with being a rival for Luigi. After all, what's a Wario without a brother? And so while Luigi arrived on the scene, but never once did he got the spotlight he deserved, so far he hasn't had a single game he could call his own. But that's okay, cause the games where he's in, he really shines. What to even say of Waluigi? He's bizarre, eccentric, batshit crazy, snarky, short-tempered, and just an overall joy to watch. In a sense, he kinda reminds me of myself sometimes. Always cracking a joke out of nowhere in the middle of the school every time, and still always giving my friends a huge smile of laughter in their faces. Waluigi, number one! Losers. But he ain't just funny either. Oh no. In almost every game he appears on, he dominates all the way thanks to his incredible strength and agility, which is also likely the reason why he has his own giant pinball machine, for Christ's sake. And hell, he's even the star of Psycho Waluigi, and that game is what many consider to be the greatest Mario fan game of all time. So in the end, it's no wonder why these two are so beloved by Nintendo fans even to this day. Our first row of villains were primarily comedic in tone, but now we're going to the downright ruthless. Sitting comfortably at the number 6 spot, we have by far the most cruelest out of all of Mario's baddies, the extraterrestrial Princess Shrew. Being the leader of the entire Shrew race, she and her Shrew minions are the most cruelest evils I have ever seen in a Mario game. Period. At first it all seems simple enough. Basic alien invasion and world conquest. Haven't seen that before, have I? But it's only the further you play through the game that you get to see how sinister and sadistic she truly is in trying to achieve her goals. From using strange trees to suck the life energy out of the toad population until they're nothing more but lifeless husks, then use it as a fuel source to power their ships, to abducting Yoshis and trying to rebirth them as monsters, to all kinds of hellish experiments on the Mushroom Kingdom inhabitants that go on and on. And all of these heinous acts came out of one simple word. We hear it all the time, but it's only when translated that the word means destroy. Why would such a species want nothing more than destruction? Well, it doesn't matter. After all, she's the bad guy, and it's up to you to take this menace down. So the deed is done, she dies, and we all lived happily ever after. Or at least that would be the case, if we didn't count her pissed off older sister. Oh yeah, as it turns out, there were two Princess Shroops all along, with the stronger elder princess being sealed away in the Cobalt Star when confronting Peach. Naturally, after breaking free, she's super fucking not happy on what you did to her younger sibling, and the true final battle begins, with the elder princess using all of her hate and strength against you. Seems basic enough. It's only in her second phase where she turns herself into a hideous Lovecraftian abomination that we get to see the elder princess Shrew for what she truly is. A cruel, heartless monster that only seeks to destroy everything, even at the cost of killing her own loyal minions. And that is what makes the elder princess Shrew such an effective villain. It's her lack of empathy and cruel, heartless acts towards her victims and even her own kind that guarantees her the number 6 spot. However, the only reason why she isn't any higher is that she just isn't as interesting as all the other baddies. But you still have to wonder, as cruel and as sadistic as both princesses are, they are still technically princesses. So how much more evil can the queen of all Shroobs be? They're shy, they're mischievous, and they're just so adorable. And what is the one boo that anyone can think of when they hear the name alone? Well, aside from Lady Bo from Paper Mario, it's King Boo, the ruler of all boos and one of Bowser's many high-ranking loyal minions. Though the term loyalty is a bit questionable, but we'll get to that later. This evil ruler made his first appearance in Luigi's Mansion, where he lures Mario into a creepy old mansion as a trap and easily overwhelmed him, trapping him inside a painting in the process. Take notes, Bowser. he was eventually sucked inside the Poltergeist 3000 and turned into a painting himself. Since then, the guy has made a great amount of reappearances in the Mario franchise as both an enemy and even a playable character in certain spin-offs, all culminating into his greatest reappearance yet in Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, where he breaks free from his prison, somehow, destroys the Dark Moon, causing all the ghosts from Eversave Valley to go apeshit, and kidnaps Mario, turning him into a painting again so he can settle his score with Luigi once and for all. They also don't call him the king of all boos for nothing either. Sure, he mostly uses his minions to do the dirty work for him, but he's no fuss when it comes to his powers. He's been a trickster, a conjurer, a necromancer, a puppeteer, a shapeshifter, and even a gambler once. However, there is something awfully fishy about King Boo that I can't help but to notice about him, and that's how completely different he is in Luigi's Mansion compared to every other game he appears in. In the normal games, he just looks like any other plain old Boo with only a crown on his head for a difference, but in Luigi's Mansion, he has glowing purplish red eyes and a large gemstone on top of his crown, likely the source of his power. This version of King Boo also shows a deeper hatred over the Mario Brothers compared to the normal King Boo, especially with Luigi. And while the normal King Boo shows some semblance of loyalty to Bowser, the Luigi's Mansion King Boo has no hint of loyalty to Bowser. If anything, Bowser might just be loyal to him. It's likely in theory that the King Boo in Luigi's Mansion is the one true King of Boos, and that this King Boo is just a phony imposter used by the real King Boo as a pawn to deceive the Mario Brothers. There's even this theory that states that Bowser's actually been dead for a very long time, and that his body's merely a hollow corpse being puppeteered by King Boo the whole time. It's actually a pretty interesting theory that I recommend you checking out someday. So in the end, it's no wonder why he's referred to as the ruler of all evil spirits, and why he makes the perfect villain to rival Luigi's cowardice. So far on the list, we had killer brats, comedic thieves, sadistic princesses, and ghost kings. What's next? Vampires? Oh hell yes! When I heard that the main villain of Mario & Luigi Dream Team was a vampire, I was generally pretty surprised. Even more surprised is how original they made him compared to other vamps of the past. Nevertheless, we have Phantasma on the number 4 spot. The first thing I want to mention about Phantasma is his design. Holy crap, is that design both intimidating and badass, with the sharp claws and fangs, the color scheme, and that wicked cape of his. I dig that design in any vampire, no matter how overused it is. Then there's his personality and backstory. A millennia ago, Phantasma was once a regular old bat native to Pillow Island, until he came into contact with a nightmare created by one of the Pillow folk. The bat fed off that nightmare, and slowly became a vampiric entity of immense power, a king of all bats in a sense, that planned on subjugating the Mushroom Kingdom and the world into nightmares. Aside for his constant screeches, Phantasma is shown to be a very calm and polite individual who always requires cooperation to achieve his goals. Hell, in the beginning of the game, he teams up with Bowser to defeat you. You'd think he would just see Bowser as a pawn to further his own goals and generally treat him like shit, like how Poeple, and King Boo did games before. But no, he respects and admires him, gives him what he wants in return for his cooperation, and even flat out asks for Bowser's help. Now that is the sign of a very admirable Mario baddie. Finally, there are the fights with him. Always fun, always a challenge, and always an epic endurance of your skills. Easily one of the best parts of Dream Team, especially the final battle with him. Phantasma pulls up no fuss. The dude can clone himself, use his munchies to buff up his certain stats, has an insane plethora of attacks from right up the wazoo, can thrust your ass straight into nightmare hell, and can even steal Dreamy Luigi, negating your dream-based attacks. It's one hell of a fight. Phantasma truly is a badass representation of a vampire in a Mario game. He may not have a thirst for blood, but he sure as hell will be remembered forever as the king of all bats, even in death. Ladies and gentlemen, on the number 3 spot, I present to you the Master of Dimensions, the Pleaser of Crowds, the fucking Devil's Gesture incarnate, DiMaggio. DiMaggio is one of the greats in Mario villainy, one who makes his charming character with ruthless, sinister intentions. His design and personality are perfectly tuned together to a T, being this happy masked gesture with a calm, soft-spoken demeanor, making him incredibly charming to watch. Seriously, whenever this guy appears on screen, he makes sure that he comes out in style. The dude is like the Bill Cipher of Mario games. And he makes quite an entrance too. The first time Mario encounters him, he effortlessly causes the robot dragon Fractail to go haywire just for the funsies. With every encounter of this insane clown posse, the more you get to see his more shady, sinister intentions. For one thing, DiMaggio's extremely smart and cunning for a Mario villain, able to tempt and manipulate lesser villains into doing his bidding, and then turning them into his mindless brainwashed minions. But that's not all the guy has. He can teleport, shoot energy spheres from his fingertips, can make clones of himself, trap you in an exploding magic force field, and even has the ability to create his very own dimensions. He's far more than just a simple, humble servant of Count Black as he lets out to be. Deep beneath his charming comedic clown facade, DiMaggio is an extremely sadistic and heartless villain, killing anyone that gets in his way and always plotting and eavesdropping behind the backs of his own allies to ensure that his own plan succeeds. In a sense, DiMaggio very much reminds me of Mephiles the Dark from Sonic 06. Both are cunning schemers that use manipulation to get what they want. Both have a vast control over space and time, and both are the only villains that have killed the main characters of their respective series. Oh yeah, did I mention? After one of the worlds you were trying to save gets destroyed by the Void, DiMaggio shows up out of nowhere and just straight up kills you, sending your souls to hell. That is awesome! But wait, it gets better. Proving that not even the afterlife can stop Mario and friends, you and your pals go and confront Count Black. After Count Black's defeat, DiMaggio kills Nastasia and reveals his true goals of wanting to destroy the universe so he can recreate it in his own image with the powers of the Chaos Heart, all the while heartlessly remarking on Count Black's true status as a pawn to him. He then nabs the Chaos Heart, takes control of Luigi's body and mind, and fuses with him, turning Luigi and DiMaggio into a terrifying fusion nicknamed Super DiMaggio. And even after he's defeated and close to death, DiMaggio had one last trick up his sleeve. He gives a final ounce of his power to the Chaos Heart, ensuring that the universe would be destroyed forever even after he's gone. DiMaggio, even in death, you are still a lovable asshole. You know, I don't even know where to start with you. I mean, top 10 craziest video game characters, top 10 funniest video game characters, Fuffle's fucking minion. Do you honestly have any idea who this guy is? Because basically, without a shadow of a doubt, we have by far the greatest Mario baddie ever conceived out of Nintendo's creative geniuses, fucking Awful Fuffle McFuffles and the Fuffle, or just simply Fuffle on the number 2 spot. Now what can I say about this guy that hasn't already been said? Nothing really, but that won't stop me from gushing over this unjolly green menace any day now. Starting off with Superstar Saga, the dude was once Cackleta's right-hand minion, and the first time you see him speak, you knew he was destined for hilarity, with a speech impediment that can make anyone burst into confused laughter, and with quotes so iconic and priceless that they should belong on a t-shirt. What can I say? The dude is the single most funniest Mario villain of all time, and it's clear that he's a literal walking parody of those hilariously bad English voice translations, and Nintendo went full-on egg roll with the idea. Nevertheless, you confront the Green Bean Menace where he makes an entrance of spectacle and bizarro that rivals even Mettaton in terms of fabulousness. And then you easily defeat him. Now, despite being launched out of a flying fortress to fall millions of feet to his death and fucking exploding, apparently, he survived from his fate unscathed and has been in hiding ever since. Poeple would then make a minor appearance in Partners in Time, running a bean shop underground. Turns out his previous defeat at the hands of the Mario Brothers has let him develop a deep hatred over the comedic duo, and has since then been slowly plotting his revenge, until finally making his grand reappearance as the main villain of Bowser's Inside Story. While he doesn't use his manipulation and temptation as often as DiMaggio does, rather than just using brute strength and numbers to get what he wants, he's just as smart as DiMaggio, if not smarter. Think about it. He's been planning his revenge over the Marios for at least a decade, and all of that planning sure as hell paid off. He easily usurps Bowser from his castle, brainwashing his minions in the process, and effortlessly overruns the Princess Castle too. He was very close into achieving his goals. He's a villain that's both downright hilarious and terrifying, and that's what makes Poeple such a memorable baddie compared to other villains in the Mario universe. Not just his gut-busting quips and complex planning, but his design also. When you see that design, you already know who this guy is. From his red cape, green skin, spiral-dyed glasses, and my favorite feature, that big-ass shit-eating grin of his! What else can I say? He's memorably designed, creatively hilarious, a perfect schemer, and most of all, he has fury! Sure, he may be gone for good now, but you can bet that he'll be back. Count on it. And here's the best part of all of this. He's not even number 1. Now I know what you're all probably thinking right now. What could possibly top the mighty Poeple? Well, before we get to that question, it's time for some good old honorable mentions. First we have Cackletta, the main antagonist of Superstar Saga. Now, despite being nowhere near as memorable as her right-hand minion, there's still a few things that I like about her. Her design is pretty creepy, and she does some pretty heinous things in the game. But there isn't that much to her that I can call memorable. With the exception of that one moment where her soul fuses with Bowser, that part was golden. Mr. L from Super Paper Mario. Yeah, sure, he's just a brainwashed alter ego of Luigi, but who cares? He's a badass version of Luigi nonetheless. Kamek from Yoshi's Island. This guy has been Bowser's caretaker and most loyal minion since Square One, always aiding Bowser whenever he can and using his rainbow sparkles to turn normal enemies into bosses. Compared to other Mario baddies, he really isn't as memorable, but I love that moment where he hurls Mario straight into outer space. That was pretty cool. Bone Chill, also from Super Paper Mario. Now this guy's pretty freaking cool. He's a giant skeletal ice dragon with a cannon for legs. He even has some inspiration to the devil himself according to his origin story. And the things he said to you when you encounter him, super fucking heartless. However, my only gripe with him is that you encounter him near the end of the game, and is only there for a few minutes before you slay his ass. Francis, yet again from Super Paper Mario. Now this guy right here is just so funny. Being this nerdy weeaboo who lives in a castle paraded by robot cat mates with an obsession with digital butterflies. Now that's probably any weeaboo's wet dream. However, despite his hilarity, he hardly qualifies as a villain, but he's still worth mentioning nonetheless. Finally, we have O-Chunks and Mimi from... You know, there's a reason why so many of these honorable mentions are from Super Paper Mario. There's just so many good villains to choose from. Of course, it would be redundant if most of the list's villains were primarily composed of this game, so I limited to just one. But these guys were pretty close into making it. O-Chunks is this hilarious Scottish muscle man, and Mimi is this little girl who's so disturbing and morbid that she's actually quite adorable. However, none of that was enough to compare to the majesty of DiMaggio. And now, let's recap. Number 10, the Koopalings. Number 9, Poeple. Number 8, Bowser Jr. Number 7, the Wario Bros. Number 6, the Princess and Elder Princess Shroop. Number 5, King Boo. Number 4, Antasma. Number 3, DiMaggio. And number 2, Poeple. Now, with all 9 villains out of the way, who could my favorite Mario villain of all time be? Who could possibly be better than Antasma, DiMaggio, and Poeple combined? This is... That's right, everyone. My absolute most favorite Mario villain of all time is Count Bleck from Super Paper Mario. Surprised? Good. Saw it coming? Okay, fine by me. Raving on why that is? Well, I'll admit to this. He isn't the coolest villain. He isn't the most evil villain. He isn't even the funniest villain. But he is, however, the most well-developed villain I've ever seen in a Mario game. He's certainly the most unique villain out there, one with a very complex and thought-provoking backstory and a legitimate reason on why he does his acts of evil. Every other villain beforehand who either wanted to rule or destroy the world were usually motivated by power, greed, spite, and revenge. With villains like these, you don't necessarily question why they're evil in the first place, you just accept it as who they are. But Count Bleck's a special case, for he is not motivated by any of those previous reasons, but rather he's a villain whose actions are motivated by sorrow, regret, grief, loneliness, and especially nihilism. So to make things simple, Count Bleck is this all-powerful interdimensional king who wants to destroy all worlds in the universe with the powers of the Chaos Heart. But why that is? Here's why. Throughout all the time you spend playing the game, it's shown through text that before Count Bleck was who he is now, he was once a young prince named Lord Blumiere. In the beginning of the story, it is said that Blumiere was first seen falling off a cliff. It is unknown why he even fell from that cliff. Perhaps it was just an accident, or worse, an attempted suicide. Regardless, a human woman found the injured and unconscious Blumiere at the bottom of the cliff, and so she decides to take him back to her home and nurses him back to health, where she introduces herself as Lady Timpani. The two slowly fell in love, even though they knew what they were doing was not allowed in their kingdoms. Still, the pair thought of a place where they can be together happily forever, and were even planning on getting married. However, that was not to come, for Blumiere's father soon found out about their love for one another, and as punishment, thrusted Timpani into another dimension, condemning her to roam around the universe till the day she dies. But Blumiere wouldn't give up just yet. He kept on searching and searching, but to no avail. Without Lady Timpani, life just seemed cruel and meaningless to him, and so he decides to take away all the happiness and joy that he himself lost from everyone in the world. He steals the Dark Prognosticus, destroys his home dimension, and renames himself Count Bleck. He then abducts Peach and Bowser and forces them to get married, creating the Chaos Heart, the catalyst of the universe's destruction. Now just think about it for a second. Count Bleck, a man so deprived and consumed by nihilism and loneliness, wishes nothing more but to eradicate everyone and everything in the universe, reducing it all into an endless void of nothingness just to free himself from the pain of his own existence. For a Mario game, that is some pretty deep and depressing storytelling right there. And while he appears to be just another bland and generic villain at first, the more you play the game, you really get to see his nihilistic motivations and the pain he constantly feels. He isn't selfish either. He cares for his minions, deeply, as if they were like family to him, and never once tried to severely punish them. This all eventually, but unsurprisingly, leads to a final battle with Count Bleck over the fate of the universe. Defeated, Count Bleck tells our heroes to finish him off and finally end his pain and suffering. But Tiffany, now as Tippy, doesn't have it in her to kill the man she loved so dear. This is where DiMaggio takes over. After killing Nastasia and revealing his true intentions, DiMaggio then teleports Bleck and his allies into one of his own dimensions, and all hope seems lost. But with some loving courage from Timpani and his minions, they were able to rejuvenate the pure hearts and thus give Mario and friends the strength to triumph over DiMaggio's twisted intentions. However, it still wasn't over yet. Since DiMaggio put the last ounce of his power into the Chaos Heart to ensure the universe's destruction, the love of Bleck and Tippy was put to the ultimate test. The two decide to use the power of the pure hearts and their true love to destroy the Chaos Heart once and for all, at the cost of their own lives. And so, with that, Bleck and Tippy then fly up into the altar to exchange some heart-wrenching words. The two admit that maybe life for everyone would have been better if they had never met, but at the same time acknowledge that they had to be with each other to experience all the happiness and joy that they wouldn't have experienced if they weren't together. And with that, the two get married and happily disappeared in a flash of light. What happens to them now is unknown. However, in the end of the credits, we get to see Count Bleck and Tippy together at last. But where are they even? You can't find them in the over there or underwear, and those are the Mario equivalents to heaven and hell. Maybe they're in their post-after games, or maybe they survived and are still out there somewhere. Regardless on where they are, they're in the place where they always wanted to be. A place where they can finally be together forever. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I picked Count Bleck as my favorite Mario villain of all time. It wasn't his looks, his humors, or even his battles, but rather his sad yet bittersweet life that made him the greatest Mario villain of all time to the greatest Mario game, period. I'm the new guy in red. Until next time.